Well, hello there. I'm back to show you how I packed my Richmond personal item bags. I took two personal size bags with me. The bento bag was one of them, and then the Travelpro regional carry-on. It's a two-wheeled suitcase that will actually fit under the seat, though it's not marketed as an underseater. And all of these items that you see that I'm folding, as well as all of my toiletries, a travel steamer, and multiple other things, fit really great in both the bento bag and the Travelpro bag. So let's talk about what I'm doing, and that is folding all of my items. Now, I fold everything, even my dirty clothes, which sounds a little counterintuitive, but when you're traveling with very small bags, every little centimeter of space counts, right? So any little tiny pocket of space really makes a difference. So what I've learned to do over the years is to fold my clothing into little cubes and keeping everything pretty much the same size. And another trick is to fold these things so that they fit perfectly into whatever packing cubes you are using. So this may not be the exact right way or the proper way to fold things, but what I'm doing is folding things to minimize wrinkles and to basically pack everything in a super tidy fashion, somewhat like a Marie Kondo type of folding, but I don't know exactly her methods, but when I've seen people doing it, I think mine are kind of similar to that. So with the scarves I brought with me, I did have a silk scarf, I had a rayon blend scarf, and then I also had three woolen scarves with me. And scarves for me really extend a wardrobe, and that's one of the reasons that I'm able to take, 5 or 6 items of clothing, and I could easily travel for multiple weeks just with those particular items. Now, on my way back, I did decide to wear my Hue reversible leggings on the black side and pack the Michael Kors jeans that I took with me as my, the jeans that I wore on my trip to Richmond, Virginia. And it would have probably saved me a half a pound or so in weight if I would have worn the jeans instead of packed them, but I was leaving my formal shoes behind, so I thought that I would have a little bit of extra space, so I wasn't as concerned about it. But everything is being folded so that it is in a little, almost like a little package, a little packet. And even when I'm folding my clothing, I will kind of stack it in categories on the bed or wherever I happen to be folding things, much like you would at a laundromat. Or when you're folding clothes at home, you put all of your socks together, all of your underclothes together. And I find that this just helps me when I'm packing to not only keep track of all of my clothing items, so I know I'm not leaving anything behind, but then I can also literally see everything I have, and it's very easy to turn around and put those things in the packing cubes that I have. So I'm actually folding the bodysuit that I wore to the formal wedding. That's actually dirty clothes, but I'm folding all of these things. This is my slip from the cocktail dress that I wore. So all of these little things are actually dirty clothes, but you see I'm still folding them tidily because you'll see in a moment how well that those fit down inside of the Scrubba wash bag that I'm using as my dirty clothes packing cube, if you will. Now, the 2 dresses that I brought that were formal, I did not count them in my capsule wardrobe. I think my capsule wardrobe ended up being 8 pieces. And so I literally wore my cocktail dress and then my formal full-length dress for the wedding. I wore those only for a few hours each night. They were not part of my capsule wardrobe. I could not have probably pulled that off. Maybe with this cocktail dress I could have made it a little bit more casual, but it was just a really nice dress. And the fabrics for both of my formal dresses did include polyester and nylon, and they just packed super well. It was wonderful to be able to not worry about showing up like Rumpelstiltskin, with everything, creases and wrinkles in my clothing. And these are the types of dresses that you really can't use a hotel iron on because it leaves marks and could potentially melt the fabric. So I really was just happy that I had to do minimal steaming on both of these dresses. Could have absolutely left my travel steamer at home, and they basically kind of hung out in any of the wrinkles or rumples kind of hung out in the closet overnight. So they were really the perfect dresses to bring with me. And you can see that even though you have a formal gown, there's still a way to kind of fold that just so, and it folds up so tiny that I was able to put both of those dresses very easily into their own packing cube and had no issues whatsoever. So it was really nice to have that option and not have to send the dress in the mail or have to take a large checked suitcase that I may or may have been able to collect from the airport. So it was just nice that I had both of these dresses, and they were perfect for the event. Now, I also brought a cape with me because it was so very bitter cold. I think it was 20 something degrees Fahrenheit. And actually, I think it was in the teens the night of the wedding. So I did bring this cape with me as my formal wrap. And as it turns out, on my way home, I did end up carrying that with me instead of actually packing it. But you'll see kind of a trick I have up my sleeve of how I could have packed that cape, even though I didn't have an extra packing cube. So I'll show you that in a minute. But right now, you can see this is my little tiny floral dirty clothes bag. It's lined in kind of a rubber material. I think it's for toddlers. And I usually put my socks and underwear inside of that little bag, my dirty clothes that go inside of that, and then my other dirty clothes go inside of the Scrubba bag. So you see I'm putting the bodysuit and the slip from my cocktail dress, those go down inside of there. And so any of my dirty clothes I'm able to really compactly put inside of that Scrubba wash bag. So sometimes I use the Scrubba wash bag if I don't have a whole lot of items. This is a small, so you do have to be cautious how many things you actually put inside. I find that I do better maybe actually using the hotel sink, but in this particular case, I am also using it as my dirty clothes bag on my way home. And you can see by using the valve on this, you could use a dry bag rather. You could use a dry bag from, Camping Supply, but I don't think that they have the valve on them, which allows you to push all the air out. And so I'm able to take my dirty clothes and essentially put them in their own little packing cube. And then because it's inside of that plastic coated bag, I don't have the transfer of odors in my bag of, sweaty socks, which is also nice. And now, even though I am packing my clean clothes and putting them, I made a mistake. I started putting them into a packing cube. And you'll see when I pull this regional suitcase out momentarily that I turn around and unpack some of the packing cubes with my underclothes, because there's a specific place in that little suitcase where you can actually put your socks and underwear. And there's just two little zipper pouches that help compress things down. And I didn't have to use the space in my packing cubes for the underwear and socks. I found one more dirty clothes item that belongs in that little dirty clothes bag. So now I start putting together the packing cubes. Now, I did use compression packing cubes, and again, notice that I'm playing Tetris. I'm literally trying to maximize what I'm putting into these packing cubes by using every little ounce of space. And this is where it takes time. And I even, as you can see, I'm folding and rolling, or sometimes just folding depending on the fabric, but I'm doing whatever I can to make use of that space as perfectly as possible. And it pays off. Packing for me is a lot like Chinese cooking. You know, you do a ton of chopping ahead of time. You have a ton of bowls of all of this, the raw food sitting out ready to go. You heat up the hot wok, and then the next thing you know, you have a wonderful stir fry. But if you hadn't have done your prep work, all of your food would burn in the wok while you were cutting up the next batch, right? So this is really a perfect kind of example of really, this is truly how I pack every time. And I've been doing this for years. So I'm kind of, you know, I monkey with the material. I'm seeing, well, does that fit correctly? And sometimes some things will fit better when you're coming than when you're going. You know, like you might get to put a certain thing in packing cubes and they fit really well. And then on the way home, maybe not so much. So it's just a real experimentation process where you're just kind of playing around to get just the right formula of things inside of those packing cubes. Now, and this one I probably had stuffed just a little bit too much. You want them just a little bit loose, the compression packing cubes, so that you're actually able to close them, because if there's not enough movement in that fabric, it makes it very difficult to actually compress. So, and in a minute, you will see, again, I'm going to have to take out some of the socks and underwear because they actually go someplace else. And another nice thing about compression packing cubes is that you can leave them unzipped. So you don't have to compress them, which sometimes makes them a little bit more malleable. And you can see where I'm using just a little grocery bag, one of those packable grocery bags. I'm kind of making that into a packing cube so that I can compress that little the cape that I brought with me, so that everything is basically in a cube or a square space, or shape, so that I can then turn around and actually start packing. Now, I did take quite a bit of jewelry with me, which definitely added to the weight of my bag. And again, though, with the formal nature of my trip, and I wanted to be fancy and have some nice things that I felt really good about. So I did actually package things really carefully, making sure that I had a couple of vintage crystal necklaces and that type of stuff. So I was very careful about how I packed everything so that I would be able to pack my jewelry and then get it home safely. And then I did actually wear that hematite necklace that I set aside. I wore that on the way home, and it does have a magnetic clasp. And I think I was having a hard time with the crystal necklaces and trying to get them latched, because it did have little vintage lobster claw latches on them. So, but everything fits perfectly just in this little jewelry roll. And I did put this in the bento bag because the bento bag was what I had with me more or less as my personal item, and it was under the seat, so I felt much more secure about having the jewelry items packed there instead of and in fact I did have to gate check the Travelpro bag. Then I didn't feel as uncomfortable about not having my jewelry with me. So this is the Travelpro bag, and it is 18 by 14 by 8, but when it becomes packed, it is almost 9 inches wide, and that is, I guess, due to gravity or whatever else. So anytime I even if it's not packed completely to capacity, it still tends to be a little bit chubby. So, and here I'm removing the under things because I remembered that it's those little bags that have the there's little latches on them, and they actually snap together once you've packed all of your things right here. This is where I put my underclothes. And then the one on the other end is where I put my socks, or a mixture of both. But then that compresses them, and then it compresses them again when you tighten the latches when you actually close the bag. So here I am redoing everything, putting the socks in the bottom. And that really is kind of how packing is. You're kind of adjusting and readjusting every time. Even though I travel really regularly, it's just part of the process for me. But I do find, and you'll see when I actually pack the bento bag here in just a second, you'll see how quickly it goes together. So your prep work is really where the magic is. Another thing I'll mention about using the compression packing cubes is it makes it a little bit easier to zip them. Just like if you have a big fluffy winter coat, like a down-filled jacket, you'll notice that I'm actually putting one of my fingers under the zipper as I'm zipping it closed. And that makes it so much easier to actually get the zipper to close instead of just pulling on it. And I think it also puts less stress on the packing cube itself. Now I'm testing one brand of packing cubes, and that's kind of the beige color one. And I'm not ready to weigh in on that yet, but the lighter colored one that I'm actually packing right now is from Tripped, and I will link those below. I really like the Tripped compression bags, and they're very, very strong. And another thing you can do with the compression cubes, as I did in this case, is I actually left part of it unzipped because I didn't want to force it to close, and I can still basically adjust and kind of manipulate that packing cube very well in my case. And what I'm doing right now is where the little channels are from the handle of the bag, I'm filling those with similar shaped items. And you'll notice that I also, when I'm pack my hairbrush, I put one of those little Brighton cloth bags over it so I don't get hair in my luggage, and also that my hairbrush stays clean. So now I'm getting ready to pack the bento bag. And the reason I kind of did it this way is I started off by filling the channels in the Travelpro bag. So anything that would fit in there and fill those little channel spaces was important to me, because the next step is to pack the bento bag, and then whatever packing cubes I had left over is what I put inside of the Travelpro luggage. So the bento bag that I purchased actually came with the little electronic bag, as well as the little clear 311 bag. And I really liked having that option because I didn't have to think about, where that was. And even though I have TSA pre-check, they're allowed to ask you to put certain items out depending on, what the concerns are of that day when you're traveling. So I really like the fact that my little electronics bag as well as that 311 bag were just kind of easily accessible. And you can see how perfectly my packing cubes fit right down in the main compartment of the bento bag. And I was able to put my iPad also in that protective area, which is in the center of the bag. And I really like that because of the padding. And then all of my other little bags and my art supplies that I have with me, as well as that's the jewelry roll that I had. All of these things were able to fit perfectly in the other side of the bento bag. And so I had very minimal items that I had to worry about actually fitting then in the Travelpro bag. So that's it. That's how I packed that bento bag. And thanks for being here. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and put your comments below on how you would pack the bento bag. Can't wait to see you next time. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.